Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Chamblee Downtown Development Authority meeting on Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020 at 6:30. We're going to have the call to order. I will go through the roll call, and if you are here, say hello. And hopefully I can remember everyone that I'm supposed to. Ronnie.
Here.
Robert. I believe Robert's here. Robert,
can you hear me? I'm here.
Yep, gotcha. And?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
Leslie?
I'm here.
And I don't believe Andy's here, but I'll say his name, Andy.
I'm here.
All right.
Oh, good. Yay.
That's the call to order. Everyone is here. The first item is the approval of the regular meeting minutes from August 25th, 2020. Has everyone had an opportunity to review and approve?
Motion to approve the minutes of August 21st, 5th as submitted.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, and I will go down that same list. Ronnie?
Here. Approved. Whatever.
Yay.
Van?
Yay.
Brian?
Yay.
Leslie?
Yay.
Andy?
Yay.
The meeting minutes for the regular meeting, August 25th, have been approved. Second item, do we have, has everyone had an opportunity to review the executive session minutes from August 25th, 2020?
Yes.
Motion to approve the minutes from the executive session, August 25th, 2020 as submitted.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Brian, second. All in favor, Ronnie?
Aye.
Robert? Van?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Leslie?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
We didn't get a yay or nay from Robert. Robert, you want to try? We may have lost Robert. Moving on to the chair's report. If you guys could go to mute, I'm going to make this as brief as possible. Basically, what I wanted to say here is this is a mix between a story and a statement. I've had the opportunity to basically walk around town a few days a week, taking note of different things, coming up with different ideas. I think Andy had a really great idea last meeting, last month, trying to figure out ways for us to do some sort of beautification projects, really add value to what it is that we do. It didn't quite fit in the facade grant, but I'd like for us to start thinking of ways to use our resources to basically enhance the downtown area. And I know we all think about this all the time, but long story short, just from walking through town, I ran into Mario, who's working on the facade over there near Southbound. Told him about the facade grant. I think he's getting ready to put in a request for the grant funds for the project that he's working on. I also ran into the folks over at Contrast, spoke with them about a few things, and I think we could probably do some stuff with our property that adds value to not only their business, but also what we're trying to accomplish with the town center. Long story short, there's a lot of noise going on out there with a lot of different local DDAs and what they do and what they contribute to their local areas. I want to make sure that we have the ability to point back to all the different things that we can do, all the different arrows that we have in our quiver, and show all the value that we add for downtown. So when it comes to things like the facade grant or Main Street beautification, or even just helping our neighbors for properties that we own, I'd like to make sure we're taking advantage of all the resources that we have available to us. Long story short, to put a bow on it, I certainly want to encourage everybody to bring ideas to the table, throw ideas out there on things that we can do. Because if you guys look down the agenda, you can see we're starting to generate some activity. We're starting to generate some things that are really going to add some value to the local businesses, and that's the end goal. So not to sound preachy, but just wanted to kind of bring that up and keep it at the forefront of everyone's mind. End of story. No feedback. Moving on to the financial report.
Robert, I think you're right on target.
What was that?
I said you were right on target.
The other thing that I would like to say, Robert, is that we do have an arts commission, and it's certainly fledgling, but I really feel like we should be talking with them. The conversation should be two ways, but we really should be talking with them as well, because I think that there are some projects that the Arts Commission has been looking at, privy to, considering, and I would really like to see us work together with them to coordinate, because this is stuff that is a little bit further in the pipeline than just ideas, and I think it would be a great way to maybe channel some of our energies and money.
Absolutely, I agree 100%.
I think Catherine can speak to that certainly better than I.
Yeah, sure. I'll just give a quick overview. There's two major projects that the Art Commission's working on now. Leslie's right, they're fledgling in the sense that they don't really have a budget to work with. But the projects they're focused on immediately, there will be a mural going up on the new public safety building on Buford Highway. So they're spearheading the public engagement for that. That'll take place hopefully this fall and winter. So we can get community engagement to pick the right artist and the right subject for that wall. There's also a desire to do a temporary art project along the Peachtree Road MARTA station, right where there's that kind of like grassy and treed area. Eventually the city wants to make it into kind of a plaza mobility hub, but until we have the funds for that, the Arts Commission is eager to kind of make that a fun temporary space to get people to kind of stop and interact with it. And then they're currently working on their 2021 art plan, which essentially is a list of projects that they'd like to tackle. So now's the time to kind of talk through that. But I think they'll be focusing a lot, obviously, on public art, starting out with murals and maybe some of this more temporary art projects. And down the line, the idea is, being able to have public art along the rail trail and other areas, not just in downtown. But yeah, I think that's a great idea. That synergy that Leslie was talking about is perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great if we could get regular updates so we know where they're at, where they need help with, and where we can plug gaps.
Sure, I'll add that as a recurring item on the agenda.
Great, Catherine.
Yeah, we just need to
Well-
make sure that there's a relationship between members of the DDA and members of the Arts Council.
Oh, well, Brian, there kind of is. Never mind. I'm joking. But I'm honest, but I'm joking.
Yeah,
Karen
you're
Lupton,
right.
it's a good
I
joke.
mean,
Karen Lupton is the councilwoman that serves on the Arts Commission. I was going to, but I feel that my husband is much more qualified to do that than I am. So my relation with the Arts Council is through my husband.
yeah, and Brian, obviously, I think if there wasn't a global pandemic, we could do some kind of mixer. Since we can't do that, because I think it would be nice to have the two groups meet. I know there is some desire when we do this public engagement portion for the mural that we will have maybe like some socially distanced gatherings. It might be out in parking lots. So if and when that does come to fruition, I'll make sure the board is invited to that.
No, I really was, just being facetious more than anything, acknowledging that there was that
Oh.
relationship between Leslie and her husband and their memberships on the boards.
Oh, sorry, I didn't pick up on that. I was taking you.
Gosh, I thought you were
Got
being, I didn't know you were being
Well,
facetious.
I picked up on that, but I also didn't know that before the meeting. So I think that's great, and also a good segue down to new business that we'll get to in a minute.
Yes, exactly.
Brian, you want to go into the financial report?
Sure. I will just give the brief overview. We've got roughly $80,000 in our debt service account, roughly $350,000 in our operating account, and roughly $1,000 in our escrow account, total of $434,000 in change in those three accounts. So that's really where we're at right now. We've got a big chunk in there.
Can I ask
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask a question because this is going to come up in a minute. Our debt service account and our operating account, are those just for presentation purposes broken out that way? Or are those actually the same account physically? Or are those actually two separate accounts?
They're actually, the way it was initially set up, they're three separate checking accounts.
And that was originally a requirement of one of the loans that the monies that were collected in rent go into the debt service account. And that was the original intent. And I think it's just stayed that way.
Okay. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Sorry, go ahead.
That's really all I have. If there's any questions, I'm happy to discuss them, but I won't belabor the point.
I have a question, and I'm not sure that it's for you, Brian, but I think it might be for both you and Catherine. Catherine, the council got our review, if you will, and from Malden and Jenkins, and one of the things that they said was that one of the things that the DDA needs to correct is that we're not getting double signatures on checks.
That was, that was a mistake on the auditor's parts because we are.
Okay,
so
good.
we cleared that up. Yeah. We've
Okay.
been doing that for the past, I think, 2 years. Laura helped me
Oh.
implement that. So yeah, you can just
Thank
ignore that
you.
part from auditors.
That
Sure.
well, no, that's fantastic, and I'm kind of glad it was a mistake on their part, although they're supposed to be omniscient and perfect. But no, that good. Thank you.
Sure.
Enough said.
If there are no other questions on the financial report, we move on to the DDA property update.
Yeah, Rob, I wasn't sure if you wanted to give an update now. I know we'll have some more in-depth discussions in executive session, or if you wanted to skip over to old business.
I will give a high-level update, and then we can go into the details on in our executive session. Give me just a moment. Things continue to move forward. The Chamblee Town Center update, really, we as in the DDA, the city, Seven Oaks, and Worthing, are getting a lot of feedback. Someone driving? All right. Can you guys all hear me?
No, well, I couldn't, but I can now.
Okay. Something's going on with the sound. So Chamblee Town Center, we are looking for creative finance options for the portion of the parking deck that would be tied to the office. We are continuing to move forward, Seven Oaks and Worthing, to look for office tenants. But really, this is kind of a dynamic process that will continue to change and get revised as we move forward. So discussions are ongoing with the city to see what the potential is for the city to front some of the cost that's going to go into the infrastructure and the parking deck. But we're also dual tracking office tenants. You guys probably understand, but in COVID, really aren't a lot of folks out shopping for new office space at this point, at least not this type of office space. So it's just going to really be something that's going to take some time and will be dynamic and changing as we sell through some of these other properties as well. That's really the high level update. That's where we are with the town center. Tables and chairs, we extended due diligence through October, the middle of October. Things continue to progress there. We are getting a lot of interest for that particular property type on the tenant side. So there's a lot of good promise going on with that we can go into more detail in the executive session. The collision site, that is continuing to progress. That has some parcel, what's the word? We need to assemble some parcels, and all of those conversations have gone well. But really, that's kind of in conversations with the city and kind of moving that process forward on that front. Our outside close dates for those two properties, tables and chairs and Chamblee Dunwoody collision, are probably about Q1 of 2021. But obviously we're trying to push that forward faster. And then Rod Mullis's site, they had an extension that pushed that outside close date to the middle of October. And that seems to be progressing the way it should on that site as well. So fingers crossed, we're looking to close on 3 out of the 5 sites that we own in the next, I can't do the math, but call it 120 days, if that's all close, maybe 180 days. And we'll get into more details in the executive session. Moving on to old business. Good question. So old business, COVID grants and beautification projects.
Yeah, just heads up. Sorry, guys, I put this twice on the agenda. That's how passionate I am about this. I didn't mean to do that. So it's also A and D under old business. So we can have the conversation that Rob started out under his chair's report now instead of twice under old business.
Yeah, so, we discussed COVID grants. I think that, and you guys feel free to jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but the juice isn't necessarily worth the squeeze on the COVID grants. But I do think that there's some beautification that we want to explore. Um, I really think we should use some of the funds available to us to identify, whether it's adding planters, adding, bike racks, really anything that we can kind of come up with that we feel comfortable doing with the cash that we have. I'd like us to start discussing that and start focusing on specific areas that could use the beautification. We've got some fantastic new sidewalks that are going in or in the process of being, completed. I'd really like to see if we can't help add to what's already going on. It's just something that pops in my mind, or adding planters and, hanging planters from street lamps around kind of the mid-city district area where we already have all those beautification projects going in. That's just my general thought, but would love to open it up to some other ideas and thoughts and see if we can't get some action on moving something forward.
Rob, I love that idea. Of course, I love that idea of planters and, natural beautification and stuff. But I feel like right now, especially on Peachtree Road and Broad Street, that it's premature because what we're dealing with the vendor that is working on Peachtree Road, and because of the fact that the city is hopefully moving forward with the Broad Street streetscape. That said, planters can certainly be temporary. They can be set up to be temporary. So I think that's a great idea. It'd be nice to explore hanging plant baskets and stuff from the street lights, but I think I'd really like to see maybe banners and hanging and temporary planters as opposed to, anything that's going to be permanent, because there's so much going in right now that is the city's already doing. So we certainly need to partner with the city as opposed to, going out on our own. But I would absolutely support that. Absolutely support that. Even though we're heading into fall and then winter, there are some planters on the bridge over 285 that is that goes past the State Farm businesses in Dunwoody, and they are planted with something that can live through winter, summer, spring, and fall, and they are perfectly fine. And therefore, while they are pots, they're still temporary. They can be moved, they can be repurposed, et cetera, et cetera. That's a great idea. Maybe what we could look at is the bridge over Chamblee Dunwoody Road that is on Peachtree Road. That's something that the city has talked about, creating a small parklet, if you will. And I think that that's something that we could probably do with temporary planters and things. It's the part of the bridge that's between the Frosty Caboose and the condos that are going in what we used to call the hole in the ground. I think there's some good places that we could use that money.
Yeah, I agree. And I was almost thinking, we don't have to do something grand. We could do something small and kind of program it and, revisit it every quarter, every year. Maybe we start with something on the bridge. We either expand the scope of that, expand that to other areas.
Yeah.
If only we had, landscape experts that we could look to give us some guidance.
Oh, I know, Brian. Brian, do you know anybody?
Nope, don't know anybody.
See, I picked up on it that time. I heard the facetiousness that time.
And let's don't forget, keep Chamblee beautiful besides Brian.
I think we need to do something, even if it's small, and I do think it ought to be temporary, that we can move it around somewhere. But I think people need to see something positive these days, and it doesn't have to be a huge project. It just has to be something different that gives you hope. So let's work on something.
Absolutely what I was thinking. I would love for people to take a stroll down, Main Street and just see something new and shiny and bright, and we can add to it.
Okie dokie.
So I would love to be able to have our downtown, I'm a big fan of announcing our presence with authority. I love that phrase. And y'all mentioned the Claremont Bridge. I think it would be great to have
No,
some
we didn't.
kind of.
No. Chamblee Dunwoody Bridge, not Claremont.
I'm sorry. Oh, y'all were talking about the Chamblee Dunwoody Bridge. Okay.
Yes.
Well, the entrance to our downtown is the Claremont Bridge. When you come underneath the Claremont Bridge, you have begun to come into our downtown. I think it would be great to have some kind of banner or some kind of sign hanging from the, from the bridge, so that as you're coming up Peach Street, it announces "Welcome to Downtown Chamblee," so people know. I mean, one of the reasons that we were created was because no one knew where downtown Chamblee was. This is a good opportunity to tell people as they're coming into our town, they're now in downtown.
So wayfinding.
I think that's a great idea. Let's do it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with Van. I think that's a great idea. That might be two separate things that we're talking about. One more permanent and more grand, and one kind of more immediate with kind of a temporary tie to it.
I think that Brian Mock, and I'm going to quote Brian, said something really great yesterday in our budget meeting that we had, that, by the way, was open to the public. And that is, and Brian, as everybody knows, is in the hotel industry. And we were having a discussion about, well, there were two parts of the discussion. One part of the discussion had to do with Eric, our mayor. And, one of the things that he said was that Chamblee is hot, and for Chamblee to pull back on any sort of put the brakes on any project that we've initiated, that we've started, would be rather detrimental, because we've got so much interest in this city from outside, from developers, from people that want to be here, people that want to have businesses here. Believe it or not, we actually do. The other part is what Brian said, which was, we've got restaurants in downtown Chamblee, and that's really great. But to put it in his words, he said, if I go out and have dinner at Himalaya and I have nowhere else to go, then I've gone home. I'm going home. And so to give our downtown the sort of beachfront property feeling that makes people want to be here for more than just having dinner in a restaurant. And Frosted Caboose does a really great job of it, because people go and eat ice cream there, but they sit on the railings next to the railroad, and their kids watch the trains go by. I watch the trains go by. That's the sort of thing that we need to, what makes people want to hang out longer than just having a meal or just having an ice cream and getting in their car and going home. That's what I would like to look at. I understand what you're saying, Van, that we want to announce, but I think that there's a lot of people that know about us that don't need that sign. And I think I would rather see us focus on providing something an experience that makes them want to do more than just have a meal and go home, makes them want to hang out. And I think that a beautiful streetscape with a bench, with, you know, kids playing on the sidewalk or whatever, I think that that's more conducive to that than a sign that says downtown this way. Maybe we need to do both. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree. You know, it sounds like, you know, getting some sort of grand signage may be a little bit down the road. How do we turn this into an actionable item where we can say, all right, we're going to move forward with figuring out how to add X, Y, and Z, and we're going to move forward with something in the next 60 days?
Catherine, that's a good question for you.
I think I'd like to, especially those of you who've spoken, but anyone who's interested, if you can send me ideas, you know, pictures either you see online or if you know of other cities, so then I can start looking at what those things would cost, you know, and we can kind of build a consensus on what we want to focus on first. So I can pull those images together, and we can look through that at upcoming meetings. And then I have reached out to our CPA. We'll be working on the budget for next year in October. And I'm hoping Brian and Van, you guys have always been so helpful on the budget, that the four of us can meet maybe virtually to go over the budget. And obviously we'll want to put a line item for these projects on there too, to make it a little bit more real so we know what we're dealing with.
What if we assign a dollar amount to the project and said, let's figure out what we can do with this and have that as a starting point?
There is one thing that I forgot, and that is that, Catherine, you need to help me with this one. Chamblee is doing a Christmas event.
It's less of an event. It's almost like a walkable light show. We are decorating and putting a bunch of lights outside around City Hall, kind of right around the town center area, that people will be able to come with their families, take pictures, you know, socially distanced from others, but still kind of enjoy and experience in December. So that's the plan for this year. It would be great if we can grow it.
I kind of think that might be a good start. You know, I mean, portable fake Christmas trees all decorated up and lit wouldn't be a bad idea. And maybe that's something that we can help with.
Sure. Are you thinking like down Peachtree Road, or just expanding what we have?
Expanding what you have, and down Peachtree Road.
My question about portable decorative Christmas trees is, where do we store them in the off season, and who manages that labor?
A lot of places, Brian, what they do is, okay, wait, I'm gonna mute some people. Okay. They lease or basically rent the decor, and so it's the companies that, I think. Hey, Ronnie, can you mute your phone if that's possible? I think that's where the feedback's coming in. I don't know if that worked. So what? Oh, that's so much better. Thank you. No, it's not. Sorry, guys. A lot of companies, you rent the decor from them, and then so you're paying a little bit more than if you would just buy it straight out, but then they're the ones who store it. That's what the city is doing this year. So we're not storing all the lighting and the decor that we're doing. And when we did the Christmas tree last year, same thing. That was a lease. That wasn't an ownership deal.
That would make sense.
And I'd love to get some credit for it. Not me personally.
To reach out to. Okay. I would like for us to reach out to property owners and business owners in the downtown area to see if they want to participate. At the depot, we've tried several years to get other folks interested. We couldn't get the city to get interested in, and we always have a big Christmas tree and other stuff. And it would be fun to see who would like to participate. I'm happy to help with that.
That would be awesome, Ronnie, because I love that idea. I do find that when it's the cities approaching the businesses, they're not quite as eager to do it. So if it comes from other businesses or if it comes from folks from the DDA, that might be much more effective. Because yeah, I think you guys do a great job with that tree at the depot. It's wonderful if we could get even a handful of other businesses doing something similar.
And do we need to include Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and other things? This is
The decor around City Hall.
International
City Hall. Yeah. The decor around City Hall is going to recognize Hanukkah and Kwanzaa as well.
So if that's something that is leased or rented or whatever, is that something that we could sponsor? Maybe annually, the DDA sponsors this?
I think so. Let me price it out. Let me also ask companies. I think it's way too late to do it this year, but I could be wrong. But most contracts have already been signed. So let me do a little research in the next few weeks and I'll get back to you on that.
Great. Yeah, obviously the goal is to provide some sort of benefit that's going to add to beautification, everything. But I also want to be able to point back to the community and say, this is also what the DDA does. And, you know, here's how we help and contribute. I think we could probably talk about this for another couple hours, but let's move forward. There's going to be some crossover with some other stuff down the line, or we're probably going to pick this conversation back up a little bit. So let's move to item B under old business, laserfish.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. The laserfish update, this is a rollover from the previous 2 months. We had, if you guys remember, we had our city clerk on last month to talk about the capabilities of laserfish and everything that we can do as far as record retention. And it sounded like a very flexible software. It sounds like everyone was on board. Emmy did reach out to some of the other city clerks, and Dan, this is more for you, to try to find some previously done IGAs between DDAs and cities. She couldn't find anything. So Dan, I'm afraid you're going to have to start from scratch there. But basically, okay. Okay, so that's our next step. And then Dan, as you're working on that, what I'll do is start working on kind of the file layout that would work, and I'll send it out to the board. Van, I know you were interested in what that would look like, so I definitely want your input on that. And hopefully we can have that all ready to go, get the IGA signed, and we can start in the next few months. I will say Emmy is having some health issues, so it might slow things down just a little bit, but I'll keep you all posted.
Let me ask for something though from you and Van. There are some implicit assumptions I think that you have in mind about how this is going to work, which I'd just be guessing at. So if y'all would take a minute and just, it doesn't have to be a memo or anything, just bang out an email with some of the things that you would expect to find in the agreement when you get it, so that I can make sure they're there to be found.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
The facade grant, this is probably just a quick update, mural edition.
Yes, well, actually, so yeah, thanks, Laura. I had asked Laura to do this because of our discussion last month about adding murals as just one more item characteristic that could be covered in the facade grant. So Laura, you take it over and I'll scroll down to your drafts that I included in the
thing. Well, good evening, everyone. I did take a look at our facade grant application and guidelines. And I don't think that it's going to take very much for us to adjust this if we want to include murals in that. If you'll look at number 4, I've highlighted that. And right now, the way it reads is front facade renovations designed to increase pedestrian activity. And one of the suggestions I would say is just drop the front facade. And I know that that's a priority, but if you want to include murals, I think that we're trying to get pedestrian activity in general. So that could include side facades as well. Oh, I know it sounds strange to have facade, but sides. I don't know what to call that. Sidewalls. There you go. Sidewalls with murals as well, since sometimes sidewalks go along that side of the building as well. So you could still prioritize, obviously, the facade of a building, but also include the mural on the side of the building. So quick, easy fix there if you want to do that. And then also just looking at number 6, we don't have any that I'm aware of buildings that qualify for historic properties. And if so, I'm fairly certain that all of them have been altered to not reflect historical values of the building. And therefore, this is not something that we really have to worry about too much downtown. And sometimes murals can bump against those guidelines. But in this case, I don't think we need to worry about that too terribly much, and mostly just wanted to bring that to your attention and see if there was anything that I was missing when I looked at that one. But as of right now, I don't think that that's something that we really have to worry too terribly much about. And then also just a reminder that we do have that guideline that we require that all designs be approved by the DDA beforehand, and that we can take a look at what their renderings of what a mural would look like beforehand, and that all projects anyway have to go through and follow our city ordinance and planning. So just looking at this, it seems like it would be fairly easy to adjust it to include murals, and we can continue to prioritize front facades of buildings, but easily allow it to include the murals as well.
My
got a
personal
question for
opinion
Dan
here is
about-
to expand the reach of this project as much as we can. But that's all I'll say about that. Sorry, Van, go ahead.
No, this question is actually for Dan as far as any of the facade grants, whether it's for a mural or just a regular facade grant. I remember when we drafted all this a few years ago, and I like it. My question is, are we tied to, say, any of the rules around the amounts or how that works? Or if a grant comes in front of us, are we allowed to motion to override that? For example, if we said, hey, instead of 5,000, we wanted to give 6,000, are we allowed to do that, or do we have to stay within the guidelines of our document?
Let me take a quick look at the document, Van. I've got it up on the screen. I have an answer for that, but I want to check and make sure that the answer is not already in here. It'd be embarrassing if it were. All right, well, somewhere in here, I can't find it in the document, but I was reading it earlier today. I think it says it will pay half the cost of the facade improvements up to $5,000. Am I recalling that correctly?
That's correct.
It's point
Right.
10.
Yeah,
Yes,
Dan,
that's
I have
correct.
it pulled it up. I have it pulled up on the screen at number 10.
Oh, thank you very much. All right, so here's what I think about that. It's our document, so we can change it. So that's where you start. However, as a matter of policy, there's not, we aren't putting the public on notice of that. So for example, somebody might have a $6,000 facade grant, look at our program sheet and say, well, I've got a $6,000 need, but this only covers 5,000. Or maybe I've got a $12,000 need and this would only go to 5, and be discouraged from submitting something and then find out we'd approve somebody else for $12,000. That's the kind of thing that we want to avoid. So I would think that if we want to allow ourselves discretion, then we ought to first amend the document to say the DDA reserves the right to award higher amounts for reasons deemed compelling by the DDA. And then we have the opportunity to vote not just on the application, but the compelling reasons at the same time. In that case, I wouldn't worry about it. But I wouldn't recommend that we go outside of what the policy says without changing the policy.
Rob, I'd like to see us discuss possibly adding that clause to the agreement. Do we need to table this for next month so that we can think about it, or do you want to have that conversation tonight?
No, if other people agree, I'd like to have the conversation because, we have a problem, whether for whatever reason, just getting folks to know that this thing exists. And I want to remove as many obstacles as possible to use as much of the funds as possible to get out to the community. So if we can figure out a solution sooner rather than later to get folks to take advantage of this, I think we should do that. But I'll open that up to discussion.
Well, I mean, I'd like to see it with the way Dan described it. I know we're going to talk about Mario's facade application in a second. And this is why his application is what deemed me to think we need to have that flexibility, because, he's doing one unit in a larger building, and it would be nice to be able to have the flexibility to say, hey, we can spend more so that we can do the rest of the building so it's not choppy and have, one unit look nice and the rest of the building look crappy. That's what facilitated my thinking.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd say the intent of this is to improve Main Street, and to the ability that we can do that, I think we should try.
I mean, do I need to make a motion to add that, or does anyone else have any other comments on it?
I think we need a motion. I think we need to go ahead and do this and get started.
Do we have a motion?
I'm not quite sure what the motion would be, other than to have Dan add a clause to the agreement for us.
Allowing us to exceed the upper limit upon showing a good cause deemed sufficient by the DDA, something like that.
Motion to do everything Dan just said.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I believe that's everybody.
May I ask, it sounds like that did not include the update to change language for the mural. Is that something that we're doing as well?
I apologize. Yes, can we amend my motion to add that?
Yes, I would agree. Do we have a motion to amend the language for sidewalls as well?
You need a new second and a new vote?
Could somebody explain what I didn't hear? It sounded like sidewalls, which reminds me of a haircut, but what are we talking about?
I
To
think
not
we
limit.
just, sorry, not to butt in too much, but I think we might want to just amend the document to allow language to include murals.
Oh, okay. No legal objection to that. It's in the same category.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
going to say to include murals, not just on the front of the building, but on the sides as well. If you want it to be
Amen.
really clear.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Sounds like moving on to Main Street beautification. We already talked about that. Facade grant. I think we're down to the Oliver annual tax calculation.
No, Rob, we're going back to the facade grant submission. That is Mario's
That's right.
facade grant. So I'll pull it up. And Mario, I have,
Oh, Captain,
what was that?
Captain, before you do
Oh.
that, Rob,
Uh-huh.
Rob, can I motion to add an item to new business that came up after Catherine published the agenda?
Of course.
Motion to have a discussion on the storage of the DDA flags as a new
Do we have-
agenda item.
do we have a
Second.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
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 It passed. I think Brian was the second on that. Yeah, sorry, facade grant, and we probably want to open that up to Mario to see if he has anything he wants to add or change or adjust based on what he's presented and based on what we're talking about.
Yep, Mario, I'll pull your application up and you should be good to go. You can talk. Unmuting,
Well, great.
please, sorry.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Y'all have a busy agenda, so I'll be as brief as possible, but happy to take questions. Again, my name is Mario Cambardella. I'm a professional landscape architect, and I live in Chamblee, 5115 Peachtree Road, with my wife, Lindsay Cambardella, who many of y'all know, and our little daughter, Perry, who's almost 2, and we got another one on the way. So we love living and working in Chamblee. My wife has a CEO of business in downtown Chamblee as well. Signed a lease with the Pachulik, Suzanne Pachulik. We're hoping to stay there at least 6 years in this building at 5388 Peachtree Road. After 4.5 years with the mayor's office of the city of Atlanta, I'm just excited to be in a partnership with B Development as their vice president. And we are taking on our design studio there and basically our management office in this location. So what we intend to do to the facade is beautify it. We want to do a major enhancement of a new awning. We want to rehab some of the brick. We want to accentuate the signage, that indentation, a little fenestration that's already there, enhance some of those brick details as much as we can. We do intend to leave the brick color as is, but the city has been kind enough to do a light pressure wash where some concrete has splashed up over the new sidewalks. But we intend to really refresh. The wood has been rotten over just years of just being on the south face with rain rushing up against it. So doing a lot of rehabbing the old doors that are there, rehabbing the old hardware that is there. So really kind of taking what is could be culturally significant to the facade, enhancing that in a really, I think, a beautiful and aesthetic and pleasing way. And really kind of showing off a little bit of signage, more subtle. I think it kind of shows up very brightly in this black and white drawing when we have color logo, but I think it's going to be a little bit more subtle as it's going to be on the interior of the windows. But then really at the top, this die cut steel sign, which is a B and it has the shovel through the middle. We do large landscape developments. And it's going to be, I think, a little piece of art in and of itself. I don't want to grandize it too much, but I think that we have something to contribute and hopefully to be, just really just a destination for people that are seeking large landscape projects to come talk to us as a consultancy. So I'll leave it there and answer any questions.
Maria, thanks. This is great. I'll open it up to the rest of the folks, but just wanted to say, based on what we've been talking about, would you revise this in any way? Is there anything that you're not doing that you would like to do with an expanded scope? And how time sensitive is this for you?
Well, we'd like to move. I'll start with the time element. We'd like to move as fast as we can. We want to set a precedent, like a presence on a streetscape. We think that's good for our business. We're a business that is expanding quite rapidly. We look to add a full-time position very soon, and many more to come over the next coming years. So we want to create that street presence. In terms of cost, we wanted to stay, our budget for this project was right around $5,000, as some of our contractors are getting back in touch with us related to some of the wood rehab, some of the painting, some of these finished details with the scissor lift and the canopy. All this thing, the cost is probably going to look more like 6 or 7. So that's within sort of the discount rate, which is, $5,000. So if we were to spend $10,000, potentially get a $5,000 grant. So it's within that range, 50% cost. So, I mean, if you're looking for, do we need more money for this building to enhance it? We could probably go a little further, but this is where we're at in terms of our budget to spend on the facade.
Thanks. I probably know what Van's question is going to be, so I'll let him ask it.
I'm not sure I have a question, but I in going in line with what you just said, with you could spend a little bit more, and the conversation we just had with Dan about modifying our agreement. I'm up for trying to get the rest of the building rehabbed as well, and I don't know if you could help us with that, and if so, we could dedicate some of our facade grant money to that, rather than just, I know right now the rules say that it's a reimbursement of half up to the 5,000. I'm not sure that I wouldn't have a problem with saying it doesn't have to be half, and just do a reimbursement up to 5,000 regardless of how much is spent, in an effort to try to get the rest of the building done as well.
Well, I mean, I think
any of that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, if that was the policy, you would probably see us spend 7 or, more likely you would see us spend $8,000 on the facade rather than 5. And I do believe that, given that kind of leash, you might see us come together as one block, all the tenants, really come up with some creative ways and cost-saving ways to spend the money. For instance, when I got quotes for the awning, called 3 places, got 3 quotes, and then once those 3 numbers came in, I asked every one of those companies, if I gave you the account next door, how much would you take off both of ours? And then they became in a bidding war, and the winner took $500 off both of our orders. So that's a triple win. That's a win for my neighbors, that's a win for the community, and that's essentially it's a win for the DDA as well, because we're lowering the cost, increasing the value. So those types of things, I think that given a little bit longer leash through policy, you may see some more happen with less.
So obviously the challenge with my thinking is the fact that the 2 units to the left of you are both vacant, and your landlord is typically not one to spend any money. Is there any way that you can think of that we can get the entire block done?
I don't. I mean, offhand, I think other than a proposal, a general proposal to talk about things that need to get done. There's things that need to get done to the structural pieces of the building that kind of break the broken window effect, or kind of heal the broken window effect, quite literally. But I think there's some other creative opportunities with murals in place when somebody has what's called an attractive nuisance, where there's broken windows and stuff like that. I know other cities have found ways to create murals in those locations, and they can be interactive and more engaging with the pedestrian traffic. There's some very creative, even technological ways to do that. So I think that there's a lot of creative opportunities to enhance the whole block if I think we just come together to find solutions and collaborate.
I like the idea of window covering for those other units that are probably going to be vacant for a while, and have been vacant for a long time. As you called it, a mural, you know, a covering that covers up the old window and is attractive to look at, you know, some kind of Chamblee scene, if you will, as you're walking by. Do you think your landlord would allow for us to pay to have those window coverings done?
I don't want to speak for her. I'm certainly not her agent, but I do have a scheduled meeting with her to talk about some creative ways. And I'd be happy to report back to this committee or on what my findings are. And I would be happy to invite her to the next meeting. I don't know if she was invited to this meeting or not, but.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, I don't want it to appear that, you know, your project is being held up by the rest of the building that you don't control, because that is certainly not the case. You know, if there's anything that we can do to help expand the scope, I think, and I don't want to speak for everyone, are definitely here. The intent of this grant is to beautify and enhance and add value to as much as we can. And so maybe if we took a look at biting this off in chunks, you control your building in your signage. I think you've had conversations with Lennox Cupcakes. I don't want to speak for you, but maybe we could group that together if you've already had some conversations with them about expanding the awnings over Lennox Cupcakes and doing some stuff there. And then we can kind of look at a third chunk as being, you know, the suites to the left of you, which are the Metcalf rehab, whatever that is, and getting the landlord involved and letting them know that we're here to help them, you know, beautify their project and really help their leasing efforts and that kind of stuff. I think that's kind of how this discussion is. Yes, I think we want to help. We'd love to help Lennox Cupcakes, but then anything we can do beyond that would be great as well. Sorry, let's
Hello. 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 Thank you. I've been muted for quite a long time, and I'm now I'm going to speak about this. The problem with the Petulik property, Mario, is that they have no parking. There is a project underway, it has been permitted, to build apartments, some retail, and parking deck behind that property. That will go a long way in resolving the issues that Ms. Petulik has with leasing her piece of property. I'm all for your granting you a facade grant in whatever denomination that you feel like it needs to be, because we need those buildings occupied. They have some historic value, and I would like to see that enhanced, which I think that you are, because you're going to occupy it. I think that we don't really need to do so much for Ms. Petulik right now, because she's very close She's had many people very interested in her building. It is the lack of parking that is the problem. That's coming with what is going to happen behind her on that whole piece of land that is between Chamblee Dunwoody Way and Chamblee Dunwoody Road. So I'm not so sure that we need to spend any money enhancing that. I'm also not real sure that we need to block the windows any more than they are already blocked there, other than what you said, Van, putting a little bit of artwork in them, temporary artwork in them, to enliven the scene, if you will. So I'm all for granting, Mario, your 5,000 or more, if that's what you need, because we've already been talking about that, in enhancing your storefront. That's my opinion.
Terrific. Well, I so appreciate this opportunity with this grant. It really, is important for us. So we're happy to participate and we're glad it's available.
And by the way, Mario,
Yes.
we're talking about planters along Peachtree Road. So maybe we can partner with you.
With Mary Ann, I'll tell you one of the, somebody told me I was the first one to go through this grant exercise. So I'm happy to share just a little bit more. Mary Ann didn't have, had done the research yet to get an architect to do the elevation. I've done a few buildings, so I know enough just to kind of put a rudimentary one together. I was able to just kind of flip this for her. She really has the mirror building. So that is going to be a cost for some people. And, one of the ways in which I was able to, when I was at the City of Atlanta, was engage a few architects and landscape architects to basically assist with some, again, drawings that were necessary for facade grants. I don't know if it's needed for this, but it's certainly one of those things that is a barrier to entry for some.
Yep. And again, back to my making Chamblee beachfront property, there are so many different ways that it can be done. We can be known for our strip clubs, which thankfully we're not going to be. We can be known for our progressiveness vis-a-vis our architecture. We could be known for our progressiveness vis-a-vis our engaging the environment. And my greatest wish has always been that we would be known for our progressiveness vis-a-vis engaging our environment. So naturally, as well as socially, as well as visually. So anything that you can do, anything that anybody wants to do to promote that, I'm in favor of.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I've lived in Fairhope, Alabama, where they did a lot of that there, and it was certainly the tourist attraction was their planter boxes and annual colors, and it brought a lot of people shopping in their downtown. So I've seen it work very effectively. Talking with the other business owners, because I really have formed a line of communication with all the business owners along that strip. A couple of the things that we were very concerned about, because we just didn't get information yet. Along the sidewalk and streetscape, we really have no protocol, and this may exist, so forgive me, and somebody just point me in the direction of this information. Layout of table and chairs, is there a design protocol for that? Is there a design protocol for railing to enclose tables and chairs for pedestrians, especially visually impaired pedestrians? And what are the design intentions around planter boxes? Like, do we want to avoid certain things? Do we want to, and then also we were even looking for water taps so that we could just keep everything fresh with irrigation. We are on the south face, and water will become necessary for any kind of, beautiful plantings along the south face. So these are some of my stuff.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, these are just some of the things I felt the need to air out here, but not necessarily discuss if y'all don't have enough time.
I think that that's a city of Chamblee thing. And I'm not quite sure which, are you on the corner of Pierce and Peachtree? Is that your building?
He's right next to Lennox Cupcakes, to the left of Lennox Cupcakes.
Oh, okay, so you've got an in between. So that doesn't really have a whole lot to do with tables and chairs, does it?
He's talking about actual tables and chairs.
Oh, I thought you meant the tables and chairs building. Mario, you have to understand we have nicknames for all of our buildings.
I got it.
Okay, all right.
Mario, I think that's
wanna-
probably a city. That's probably a city of Chamblee. I don't think we can help you there. But I did want to ask. I think did you have conversations with Lennox Cupcakes about their awning and possibly doing some work over there, or were they interested in doing some upgrades?
Absolutely, they are. And so I've provided them with an elevation and a little bit of instruction as I've gone through it, and they'll be submitting next month.
Okay, great. So that's a leading question, and then I'll let Van talk.
Mario, I'm sorry, Rob, but I would like to interrupt you. Mario, would you please, and I know you probably have, but can you please also approach the city again? Because we're having issues with the Peachtree Road streetscape project, and with I'm not going to go out on a limb here. We're having issues with that, and with the way that they the company that we've hired have installed the sidewalks, have installed blah 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 blah. So I would really like you to maybe go and talk again with the city. I know it's hard. I know it's a pain in the ass, but there are things that have gone wrong, and I would like to be really sure that there are things that have been done that I didn't think were supposed to be done. And I'd like to be really sure that there are not things in the contract with that company that are going to be undone, maybe without your knowledge.
Okay. Leslie, I'll email you after this and
Email me and I will go and talk with you to the city, because it's a cluster.
yeah, well, I'm happy
Okay,
to.
enough said.
Yeah.
So
I just want to clarify
based on
a
everything
point
that,
from,
go ahead.
I wanted to clarify a point because Leslie earlier said Mario's $5,000 facade grant. His grant is actually currently, without any motions, a $2,500 request. He's spending $5,000, but the way our current rules say is he's only getting reimbursed for half of that. So I just want to make sure everyone realized, unless we motion something different, it's not $5,000.
Yeah, we all
I hear you.
share a brain. We all share a brain here, because I think we're all thinking about the same thing. Mario, would you like us to act on this, or do you want to come back next month and maybe have some revisions based on the conversations we've had to see about maybe expanding the scope?
Or if I could propose a third option, in construction, there's things you discover, especially with old buildings. You pull off one thing, realize, wow, there's rotten wood behind that, or you just find a loose brick and all of a sudden you have a mason's bill. One of the things I would suggest is that there is an avenue to explore cost overruns. Because I think it's going to cost $5,000, and we're happy to move forward with this because we really need to kind of dress it up in terms of time. But maybe come back if there are some overruns and look at the 50% split thereafter. Would that be a possibility?
How about an amount not to exceed?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
That's clean.
Well, Leslie, I think the issue with the way it's written is that we can only do up to 50% of the proposed value. And so next month, that language will be changed to be, I think, an amount that we deem appropriate. There's no limit, and there's no, match or 50% of type of thing. So
I get it. I think
Maury,
this is probably a good idea to let it rest until next month then.
Maury, do you understand what we're saying?
Yes, yeah, that's fine.
Would you like us to?
Okay. I quit.
Would you like us to table this till next month?
Yeah,
And maybe reapply?
Yes.
Okay. And then, yeah, we'd love to see Lennox propose something as well. So to the extent you can help that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Go feed your daughter, Mario.
There's a
She's
2-year-old
hungry.
in the background. Sorry, y'all.
Yeah. No worries.
Life
Thank you
as
very
we
much.
know it.
Yeah, y'all might want to mute me now. Thank you.
Really appreciate your time.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mario.
All right. Facade grant submission, that was a good conversation. The Oliver annual tax calculation.
Yeah, I'll pull that up. I had Dan take a look at it too. This is the one that they have to submit every fall. They're actually a little early this year. Dan, was there anything amiss that you saw? It looked good to me when I looked over it. And I don't know if the board has any questions, but
These are the exact same numbers as last year. They haven't changed a thing. So
right.
Unless Dan thinks that the valuation is not correct, it's the same numbers as 2015.
Correct.
And just adding on to that.
Sorry? What I was saying, the one thing that struck me a little odd was what Van said. The fair market value is the same, the millage rates are the same, but they provided substantiation, and I checked the millage rates, and that seems to be what it is. It just seems to be a little unusual, but if that's what it is, then the report is what it should be.
Is the taxable value what the DeKalb County says is the taxable value?
Yes, they showed us the tax bill, and the assessors have said that they're not systematic about updating properties on the exempt digest like they are properties in private ownership. But it is what it is, and I don't think we want to get into trying to come up with our own valuation. So the report checks out in terms of complying with the MOU, which is what it's supposed to do.
Dan, in this case, this is one time that I'm actually very happy with the county tax assessor, because I took the initiative after seeing these numbers to go back every year in our documents. And I know this kind of goes in line with our desire to have the Laserfish so that we can access this, because I could not find what we did in 2015. So I'm not sure if we received an administrative payment that year. There's nothing in our files. But when you look at the valuation in 2017, the county had it at $30,136,000. In 2018, they upped it to $59,791,000. I think that's because there was a sale that year of the property. And then in 2019 and 2020, they have it at the $82 million. And if you add those 4 years up, again, I don't know if we received a payment prior to 2017. We've collected $641,393 in administrative payments. More than $500,000 is coming to PA from this one project.
Not too shabby.
Yeah, anyone that says they don't like what the DDA is doing, we should point to that number.
Add it to the case study. Yeah, I don't have a problem. I'm going to look up the sale.
I was just going to say, Catherine, if you could look in your files and see if there is a payment back in 2016 and 2015, that would be great. I'd love to know that number.
Sure, I'll take a look. It all depends what was established as year one. It might have been 2016.
It could be, but I found that we executed the actual contract in 2014. So, you know, I don't know. I guess there was a period of time for construction.
Yeah, most of our projects, they don't start, they start a couple of years after the MOU.
Till they get their CO.
Mhm.
So where does that show up in our financials?
We have a line item for administrative payments.
Okay. I mean, I knew that, but seems a little sparse compared to that.
So for reference, this sold in 2018, late 2018 for $83 million or 293 a unit. Makes sense
So
to me.
that $82 million valuation is pretty much the sale price.
You're off by $47,000, yeah. Do we need to approve this?
Yes, we need a motion from the board.
Motion to approve the administrative payment
Does
from the
anyone have any-
Olmsted.
Go ahead.
I would,
Second.
Yeah, second.
I guess a point of clarification, it's no longer the Olmsted, it is now the Oliver.
Correct.
With a martini.
All in
Second.
favor? All in favor? Ronnie?
Aye.
Aye.
Van Brian? Sounded like
Aye.
everybody. Excellent. All right, sorry, scrolling. I'll try to pick this up. New business, bank deposits and minimum requirements. This is just going to be a real high-level conversation about some stuff that came up in the last week. Basically, we are required to put up 25% of the outstanding loan balance that we have with Piedmont Bank, I believe.
Yes.
We need to keep that balance on the books in an account held by Piedmont. And so we are basically just working with the city to make sure we're fulfilling that obligation, to make sure that we're not in default of that. So I just wanted to make everybody aware that that was something that we needed to do.
I really can't understand you. There's a lot of background noise.
Sorry.
If could you guys go to mute, and I'll just restate that. We're required to put up 25% of the outstanding loan balance we have with Piedmont. And we are in the process of sending funds over to a Piedmont held bank account to make sure that we're in compliance with the loan docs. That's it.
When you say we are required to put up 25% of the outstanding balance of the loans, which is about $13 million, so 25% would be $4 million. We don't have $4 million to put into an account.
That's right. The city is in the process of transferring funds.
Okay, so that was the clarification that I was looking for. It's the city is required, not the DDA.
And let me intervene. One of the questions I raised, and I sent Rob, you and Catherine a copy of the bond purchase loan agreement today. I remember a discussion of this at the time, but I don't think it's in our bond documents. What's the source of the requirement? Have we been able to smoke that out?
No, Dan, I saw your email. I haven't found it yet. It was basically the same thing that you just said. When I talked to Davenport, which is the city's financial advisors, they have remembered the same discussion, but I don't know if it's actually in writing, so I don't know how enforceable it is. But
Well,
I'll take another
so-
look.
I'll quote you something from
So-
that great legal scholar, Samuel Goldwyn of Metro Goldwyn Mayer. An oral contract ain't worth the paper it's written on.
So there must,
Well-
Dan, there must be something in writing somewhere, because the bank reached out to Rob and I because they were having a government audit of the bank, and the auditors found that requirement in the files and said that we were in default of that requirement. So I guess we could ask the bank to provide what the auditors found if you don't have anything in your files.
Yeah, I would. I
But if
don't
it's
think
not
we
in the
need to
bond
get.
agreement, we don't have to, right?
Yeah,
we
we'll
don't need.
confirm. We'll confirm. It's just, it's something that's an open item that, you know, we are working through with the city and the bank.
Well, we don't need to get crosswise with the bank, and I'm not trying to make an issue out of it, but accommodating is one thing, but default is such a harsh word, and something that our auditors would certainly pick up on. So let's not call it that. But I would like to see what they're relying on. And for all I know, there's a piece of paper somewhere that's not in the transcript. But anyway, I think we're doing the right thing. We're being, good partners. Piedmont's been good to us over the years to try to accommodate. But let's just find out exactly what the boundaries are of that in case, it gets to be a problem for us or the city down the line.
That's right. There's nothing to act on there. Just wanted to make sure everyone was aware. Moving on, Frisbee golf on the ACU site. This is kind of part of a larger conversation, and I don't want to eat up any more time than we need to, but I was out walking, and I've had a few drinks at Contrast. These are two separate events, not the same. And just I've noticed that our site adjacent to Contrast is going unutilized at the moment. And so I approached the folks over at Contrast and just said, hey guys, what can we do to help you, being that we're the neighbors? We own the property, and we want to do what we can to be good neighbors and facilitate some sort of activity there, while we're continuing to go down the process of getting our town center developed. And just kind of start throwing around some ideas. And the first idea, kind of on one end of the spectrum, is just to clean up the hillside along Contrast, go out there, remove some of the debris, just make it look nice. If you've ever been there, you're basically just staring at an overgrown forest, and there's overflow from the parking lot into the hill that is technically our property. And so wanted to see if there's anything that we can do on our side to help clean up and beautify the immediate adjacent area, that would also help us kind of spur conversation around the town center, let folks know what is eventually going to come there, and to help get some activity there. So again, on one end of the spectrum, it's just really kind of cleaning up that hill, maybe, putting in some tables and chairs, not building, but actual tables and chairs, and giving them some room to kind of have overflow seating. In the age of COVID, I think any additional outdoor seating and things that folks can do to add business and add some volume, it would be helpful. They also have relationships with an actual professional Frisbee golfer, and the gentleman that did the Chamblee Dunwoody Methodist Frisbee golf course, if you guys are familiar with that. And we also threw out the idea, well, hell, what if you just, figured out the entire site temporarily to put some sort of Frisbee golf, course out on the town center site. Again, the intent is to generate some activity, get folks down there, have more folks, visit the local businesses, all that kind of stuff. And so we've talked about everything from cleaning up the side of the hill to doing something a little more grand and a little more, robust with our site while we continue down this process of, getting the town center off the ground. I think it would be great to activate any space that we are in control of, even if it's just temporarily and for a small dollar amount. I am going to have additional conversations with the contrast folks on Thursday, I believe, just to say, hey, this is what we discussed. Nothing is set in stone. There's nothing that we're obligated to do, but I wanted to raise it to the group for any of our properties, especially this site, for, what are your thoughts about getting some additional activity here, knowing that, we're trying to host broker events, we're trying to, get folks downtown, we're trying to get some activity and have folks get excited about our town center project while it's in the process of being developed. And I'll open that up.
I like the idea. My concern would be what sort of liability does the DDA incur? And is there a way that we can structure it so that the liability is put elsewhere? But beyond that, I would love to do whatever we can with all of our properties.
Absolutely. And the main thing I told to the contrast folks was, if there's a cost associated with it, it's going to be making sure you have insurance, that sort of thing. So I think my ask here would be to, one, I think we need to just clean up the hill. I think at the very least. I think we need to see how we can continue to activate this space. And, we can go as big or as small as we want. I would certainly lean on our development partners and the folks that are going to be buying this property from us and developing it. I would lean on them to see, what's most appropriate and have them kind of continue those conversations. But I did want to bring it up to the group that this had just kind of been one of those things that had been on my mind and thought it might be a good way of generating some activity. Nothing to do, nothing to act on. I don't know if anyone has any comments. If not, we can move into the executive session.
We still have that added agenda item.
I'm sorry, we have the added agenda item. Moving on to
now, or still on the Frisbee ball?
Yeah. Moving on to Van's item with the.
So Jody from the Parks Department called me on Friday to let me know that she was instructed by the city manager to clean out the big closet that's underneath the Civic Center. They have a bunch of park stuff that they had to clear out, but that was also where we were storing our DDA flags. And so she said that we as the DDA need to find a place for those before January 1st. So at one point they were in my garage. My wife will not allow that anymore. So we need to come up with another location. Catherine, I don't know if there's any place that the city can provide us. I know space is tight.
Yeah, we're running low on space. I think the Civic Center, since that's going to get demolished as soon as the public safety building is done, I'm guessing that's why the clean out has been ordered for that.
Do you know if there's going to be any closet space in the public safety building?
I don't know. I assume there will be some, but I assume most of that's going to be taken up by PD. But I will ask the architect and PD if they have any wiggle room or any space for that.
How much space are
Well,
we talking
the
about?
only other, not much, they stand upright, so 2 big trash cans would hold them all.
About a temporary shed.
Not
on the east
anywhere in the
side.
city that somebody has that space.
Well, I mean, I'm hesitant
That's
to say
pretty
this, but
astounding. I'm sorry.
yeah, I'm hesitant to say this, but we could maybe ask Public Works, but you know, I don't get warm fuzzies when I talk with Public Works, so someone else will need to do that.
Yeah, I'll ask around. I'm not optimistic on finding storage space in other facilities, but I will ask, Van.
That's it. That's all.
Thanks, Van. If there are no other items or questions, let's move into executive session. Do we have a motion?
Give me 1 second. It looks like Robert Pond wanted to say something. Robert, you should be able to talk now, although it looks like you've muted yourself.
How about now?
Yeah.
All right. Van, I got a place for you. I'll call you tomorrow. We'll find somewhere for it, okay?
Thanks, Robert.
Yep.
Do we have a motion to
Rob, you
go into
want that?
executive session?
Motion to go into executive session pursuant to OCGA 50-14-3B1 for the purpose of discussing or approving a real estate transaction.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 That's everybody. I think that's everybody.
Catherine, you have to turn on the recording.
Just turned it back on, so we're good to go to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn regular meeting.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I think that's it.
Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
See ya.
Thank you.
Good night.